Why trade wars bad for our planet's future? This topic may seem disconnected, but it is more intertwined than we think. The effect of trade wars on global environmental sustainability. Over the past few years, we have seen a rise in trade conflicts, particularly the ongoing US trade war. While these trade disputes are often viewed through the lens of economics and politics, they also have a profound impact on environment and sustainability goals worldwide. Hi, I'm Lina. In this video, we will unpack how trade wars can influence global environmental efforts, from carbon emissions to resource management, and what this means for future sustainability strategies. Now, let's take a look at key subfields of economics that are tightly linked with sustainability. Environmental economics. This field looks at how we can balance economic growth with the preservation of environment. It focuses on putting price on things like clean air, water, and other biodiversity ecosystem. For example, economists use concepts like ecosystem services to help government and a business understand the economic value of conserving natural areas. Natural resource management economics. This subfield explores how we can manage resources like forest, fisheries, minerals, and others sustainably. The goal is to ensure that these resources are used efficiently without depleting them for future generations. Sustainable development economics integrate economic development with environmental stewardship. The idea is to foster economic growth that doesn't harm the planet. Think about policies that promote green technologies or sustainable agriculture. Green finance. Finally, a rapidly growing area in economics. It focuses on funding sustainable projects through investments in renewable energy, green bonds, social enterprises, and many more. This field allows private and public sectors to work together to achieve sustainability goals through funding mechanism. Before diving into the environmental impact, let's first understand what a trade war is. A trade war occurs when one country imposes tariffs or other trade barriers on another country in response to unfair trade practices or to protect its domestic industries. In the case of US-China trade war, for example, tariffs were placed on a range of goods, from electronics to steel, in an effort to reduce trade imbalances and pressure China to adopt fairer trade practices. While trade wars often discussed in terms of their impact on industries and economic growth, their influence extends far beyond this. Trade disruption can affect everything from supply chains to consumer prices, and surprisingly, they can also have a significant environmental impact. While the immediate effects of trade war might seem economic, they can have long-term repercussions for global sustainability. Trade wars often lead to a reduction in trade flows, which means goods are transported over longer distances or through less efficient routes. This increases the carbon footprint of global supply chains. For example, if the US imposes tariffs on Chinese solar panels, the resulting cost increases could discourage the adoption of renewable energy technologies, which in turn can delay progress on climate goals. Another issue is the reorientation of supply chains. As countries imposes tariffs, industries often seek alternative markets or materials that might not be as sustainable. For example, a shift away from Chinese solar panels might lead to an increased reliance on fossil fuel-based sources in the US or other parts of the world, further depleting non-renewable resources. Trade wars can also disrupt global cooperation on environmental sustainability. For instance, the Paris Climate Agreement relies on international collaborations, with countries agreeing to collectively reduce carbon emissions. When trade conflicts arise, countries may be less inclined to cooperate on environmental issues, as economic tensions can overshadow shared environmental goals. Protectionism during trade wars may hinder the flow of green technologies. For example, tariffs on EVs, renewable energy components, or energy efficient technologies could stifle innovation and slow down the transition to a greener global economy. Let's take a moment to explore a visual representation of how US China trade has evolved over the past 2 decades. After China joined the World Trade Organization in 2001, trade surged, peaking around 2018 when the US imposed tariffs on Chinese imports, including solar panels and EV parts. This trade, however, has lowered US consumer prices, increased corporate profits, but also led to losses due to import competition, automation, and offshoring. A notable example in the US trade was impact on the solar energy sectors. In 2018, the Trump administration imposed tariffs on imported solar panels from China, one of the world's largest suppliers. This led to a higher cost for solar projects in the US, slowing down the adoption of renewable energy. As a result, few renewable projects were started and the reliance on fossil fuel remained high. In another example, tariffs on EV part and technology can limit the adoption of EVs. EVs are crucial for reducing greenhouse gas emissions, but trade wars can make them more expensive for consumers and manufacturers, delaying their widespread use. These cases highlight how trade wars can undermine efforts to transition to a low carbon economy by making clean technologies less accessible. So, what can we do to mitigate the environmental impact of trade wars? One solution lies in green finance. When the World Bank issued the green bond, it created the blueprint for today's green bond market. Since then, the World Bank has raised over 13 billion US dollars through nearly 150 green bonds in 20 countries for investors worldwide. Green finance includes investments in environmentally sustainable projects like renewable energy, clean tech, and climate adaptation. Studies have shown that green finance, particularly investment in green innovation and the implementation of environmental taxes, has a significant positive effect on reducing environmental degradation in China. Governments and private investors can play a crucial role by directing funding toward sustainability projects that are resilient to trade disruptions. For example, green bonds or impact investments can help provide financial stability for clean technologies ensuring that the transition to a sustainable future continues even in the face of economic uncertainties. In conclusion, while trade wars may seem like an economic issue, their environmental consequences cannot be overlooked. Increased emissions, resource depletion, and disruption to global sustainability agreement are just a few of the negative effects that can arise. However, through green finance and continued international cooperation, we can mitigate some of these impacts and continue working towards a sustainable look ahead. How do you think trade wars will shape our environmental future? Thank you for watching.